You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode, we discuss the importance of having support during tough seasons, talk about the value men place on being the leader of a household, analyze the learning process that men go through, especially when they don't see examples growing up, and go deep on the challenges of dealing with unemployment while in a relationship. And so, getting back to the relationship and your journey. So you guys were dating for about 18 months before you proposed. Were you ready to settle down? I know you said you wanted something different, but were you ready to settle down at that point? Or were you just hoping to date and see what happens?
No, I was ready to settle down.
Okay.
Yeah, I was ready to settle down.
And so why did you propose to your wife?
I knew... I just had that feeling in my heart it was time. It was...
Time from like an age standpoint or time just given like what you guys have been through?
Yeah. Just where we both were at that stage of our relationship, I felt like it was time. And it's funny how life works. And this might be going a little further into our conversation, mm-hmm. but I had lost my job in February of 2018.
Okay.
And I actually I picked up another job in April. And I honestly felt like the reason why I was at that job was literally just to get her ring. I mean, because I wasn't there long after I proposed. And so, yeah, it was a purpose for me being in that position.
And so, you, just to make sure I heard you correctly, you guys are dating, you have month 16-ish, and you lose your job. And then it takes you
No. We have been dating for over a year. Okay. At that point, and you know that this is the person that I knew at that point that this is the person who I wanted to spend my life with.
And then you lose your job.
And then I lost my job. And it was like January. It was the end of January.
So, but you knew, I'm trying to make moves towards that direction.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you lose your job.
Yeah.
And so...
Because I probably would have proposed before if I hadn't lost my job.
So what goes through your head? Like, I don't have a job.
Like, man, I was just like, I got to do something. Like, I know this is the person I want to be with. This I feel like who was created for me. And then it start going to your head like, as a man, what am I doing? Like, I'm sitting at the house. She's got a full-time job.
And like a legit job.
Job. Yeah. It's not like, she work at, I mean, there's no shade to anything. But
but she has a legit profession, career, got a PhD. Like,
exactly.
This is, and I say this because I think in this generation that we live in, women tend to be more prideful of their accomplishments because we're in a generation where they previously weren't able to accomplish it. So it's important that they've gotten these accomplishments. And so you're with a woman that has gotten her degree, has her PhD, and is working in a professional role, having impact daily. Yeah. And so I said to say, this is her mindset. So she's in this, I've accomplished so much in my life and I'm with this guy that I would assume equally yoked, and he loses his job. Like what's going on in her head?
I feel like more things are going on in my head than hers.
Why do you say that?
Because I feel like she's of the mindset that, I mean, like I said, she's a believer, man, and she knows that what God has for us, He'll provide. Me, on the other hand, I'm not as seasoned in my walk.
So you're not there yet.
So she definitely was a lot farther than I am. So me, I'm up here thinking like, man, what is this? Like, I just gotta, at this point, I just gotta find a job because, this lady's got a doctor in front of her name, and like, what am I truly bringing to the table?
Yeah.
And if you know her, she could care, like, that's not her mindset. Like, she doesn't even tell people she's a doctor. So, but in my head, I'm like, man, like, I got to do something. Like, what am I truly bringing to the
feel
table?
like you were putting more pressure on yourself than
for sure.
required?
For sure.
And how did that impact the relationship in any kind of way?
No, I think the only way it impacted the relationship is I would get down on myself, and she would get upset. Like, it's going to work out. Like, just continue to do what you're doing. It's going to work out. But I would be harder on myself than she would.
So you didn't feel a lot of pressure from her directly, but things that are going on in your head, expectations you have for yourself or yourself as a man, a role to be like, I'm about to be this person's quote unquote provider, and man in this person's life, and and so what are some of the thoughts that you're thinking about? Uncertainty with what's next. You want to take this next step in your relationship. I know you say you found a job a couple of months later. Yeah. Would it have been a situation where, let's say it took 6 months, you would have waited until you got the job to propose? Or like, what was the proposal? Not that the decision was tied to the job, but like the action. Like, was the action really tied to getting another job, or was it?
Financially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you feel like there was pressure with job and then not having job to compete with her financially, or to be more equally yoked financially, or that just wasn't?
There was never, I mean, to this day, like, financially, I feel like there's never been like a competition or no.
Is that something that you've come in with, or it's because of how she treats it?
Because of how she treats it.
And so let's go into that, because I've been in conversations with other people, especially women, that say, hey, I'm bringing, X number of dollars to the table. If this person is not bringing the same or more, then I'm running the household, and I'm making decisions, and I'm managing the money. And so given that, like, there were seasons where you weren't bringing anything to the table, what was her attitude towards it, and how did that make you feel?
I mean, her attitude was, even before we even got engaged, her attitude, even though we weren't necessarily doing things financially together, her attitude was still, it's us. Yeah. Like, if I got it, you got it. Don't stress. And, she always, but even with that, she's always allowed me to be the man. And, like I said, it just goes back to her, just her upbringing. And, when people start holding finances over people's head, or if a woman makes more money than the guy, that doesn't lessen his credibility as a man.
Cause to lead.
Yeah, to lead. Yeah. Because there's other aspects of a relationship that a man can lead.
Did you feel like you had to, and not necessarily from like things that she was saying or doing, that you had to say, well, she's you have this relationship, and people tell you it's never 50-50, right? Yeah. And so you're like, okay, on the financial standpoint, she's doing more than 50. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you had to overcompensate in other aspects to feel equal? Or did you feel like, I'm just going to keep doing what I do and we'll figure it out? Like, what was the thought process?
Talking about that point?
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah, I feel like I was just like, I'm just going to continue to do what I do, and, we're going to make it work. Because I got the buy-in from her. Yeah. Like, this is, if we're truly headed on this direction of becoming husband and wife, or like, there is no it's us at the end of the day. Because it's not your money, it's not my money, it's our money. So, I think the only pressure that ever came was from just me putting the pressure on myself.
Do you think things would have been different, whether how you gone about the relationship or how you viewed her, if her approach was different, or whether she put pressure like, man, you need to go do something, you need to bring X number of dollars to the table, or just adding more pressure than the already pressure-filled situation lent itself for?
Yeah, it definitely would have been different. It definitely, how it would have been different, like, I just don't know how I would have, like, really navigated it, or like
responded to it.
Yeah, responded to it.
What if she was like, okay, you don't have, you're not bringing in whatever, but now she's trying to take, let's say, a more dominant role than normal into like how you guys have traditionally made decisions? Because you're like, well, I'm bringing X number. Like, how would that have changed dynamics, or would have changed it for you?
I probably would have looked at her a little different at that point, just because, you know, the person that I knew who she wasn't the person that she actually is.
Yeah.
So, you know, it definitely would have. It definitely would have took a toll on a relationship if that in actuality was her mindset. And I don't even know if, you know, we'd be at that the place we are now if it was that, just because that wasn't who I thought she was, type thing.
No, I get it.
Yeah. And
part of why I want to talk about it, because these things are liable to happen in situations, and it's important to know what a guy is going through, the pressures that the situation brings to the table, the pressures that he puts on himself, and what could help alleviate or make a situation better through the support that you get through your person's actions and their words. And so one of the things that you said was the fact that due to her upbringing, you know, the money part didn't really matter. Her upbringing was one that was like, the guy's going to be the leader of the family. Yeah. Was that something that was important to you?
Being the leader?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And running the household and running it, not like what I say is law, but just being the man and the leader. Yeah. And say, hey, here's the direction that we're taking. Was that something that was important to you?
Yeah, it was important just because I had never saw it. Now, you know, I would say my stepfather, you know, I would say he did a pretty good job of, but I would also say it was just some of his decision makings that he made and mistakes that he made that kind of cast that shadow. But no, I mean, that was extremely important to me, just because, you know, especially with my father, to this day, I still have that issue with him. And, you know, I often do self-evaluations of myself. And I'm like, I don't want to become that type thing. And, you know, and like I said, I see it to this day of him and his relationship. Yep. And how, and I mean, he's in a situation where it's, you know, his wife's not even bringing not much to the table at all, but she verbally and just the way she goes about, you know, I feel like she's not allowing him to truly be the man. But it also falls on him not really stepping up and trying to truly lead. So part of your experiences that you've had growing up has kind of created this desire to say, hey, I haven't seen it, but I want to then live it and be that for your future legacy. Yeah. And so how is it, and we talked about this in some ways before, but I'd imagine, we can go into it as well. You growing up, single parent, only child, right? On my mom's side.
On your mom's side. But growing up is primarily just you.
Yeah, it was just me. Me and, like I said, she remarried, so my stepbrother and sister, they were around too.
But for a while, it was just you and her.
Yeah, it was just me and her.
And so there are a lot of things that you just weren't taught, right? And we talked about some of it from a financial planning standpoint, what have you. And then on the contrast, you are with someone that's all they know. Yeah. Like the example, whether it's the perfect example, everybody's different, but the roadmap, right, generally is what people want, right? Yeah. It's perfect roadmap, right? How is it, or how has it been being someone that hasn't seen the right examples or been taught how to do certain things as the leader of the family with someone that has probably seen multiple examples of different things, trying to lead and figure it out at the same time?
It's definitely been a learning process, honestly. You know, I mean, we've been married almost 3 months, and, you know, I feel like I'm learning every day. And, you know, I've told my father, I'm like, you know, you were a true example, perfect example of what not to do. And, you know, I try to, you know, and it's also important to having like good people around you. Like I said, man, just having a strong Christian like brothers around you, or just a good guys, like, you know, for married guys, if you got some good dudes who are married and, you know, can truly hold you accountable and, you know, like just having that community of people that you could talk to, like, you know, I feel like that's so important. Like, so for areas where I might not understand or I might struggle, I might reach out to somebody and get their perspective. Like, okay, you should go about it this way. Because I mean, you can't do it alone.
Oh, you can't.
You can't do it alone, especially if you've never been taught.
Yeah,
like you got to be able to. I mean, it's just like reading a book. Like you got to seek the knowledge if you want it. So, in marriage, there is no playbook for it.
Yeah, we don't take classes on.
So, you know, your best playbook is people who are actually in it and people who are actually successful at it. So, you know, I try to reach out to. You know, we're in the life group, and then I got some other guys that I talk to. So, you know, in those areas where I feel like I'm a little hazy in this area, or like, how would you go about this? I reach out to them.
Is it more from like a proactive standpoint because you recognize what you know and don't know, or is it like, okay, in the middle of something?
Both.
Okay, both.
And
so what is it like? Because I can imagine a situation where you may want to do something or lead your household, your wife, in a certain direction. Say, let's do something this way. And let's just use money, right? Finances. Let's do our finances this way. What have you? You didn't necessarily grow up in an environment that gave you a guide for it. And not so you can't research and read articles about it, but your basis for doing it that way isn't strong, other than like it's the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
And she has a vision for how she's seen it done that's worked and wants to do it. How do you deal with situations where she's kind of set in like a way to do it because that's what she's seen, and you have a way that you want to take it, and you don't have as much, for lack of better words, credibility in why you're going that way? How do you navigate that?
Communication. And it's communication. Like we was just at a marriage conference this past weekend, and it's, when I say communication, it's not just saying stuff on the surface, but like truly diving deep on like, well, I want to do the finances this way. Well, why? And like really go deep in detail of like why you feel like this might be the best way we go about it, as opposed to, well, I just want to do it because that's the way I was taught. No, like you were taught this and that's good. I wasn't taught that, but
nothing's wrong with that.
Nothing's wrong with that, but we're two flawed people coming to become one. So we both bringing something to the table. So if I got something, you got something, all right, and we're at odds, let's find a happy medium. So, but
are those conversations easy?
Difficult.
And how do you,
especially like finances.
Yeah,
it's difficult. But
what makes it difficult? Because I think that, they say that's like number one reason for divorce, or number two. So like, what makes it difficult? Like what aspects of it make it hard?
Well, for me, and that I'm just being open and transparent. Is when, especially like, I'm just getting back, like to this job and everything. Mm-hmm. So, things had fallen off for a while, and it was difficult to truly be open and honest and not allow your pride to get in the way and say, hey, I need help. Like, when it comes to like, I know you got your stuff, but I need help taking care of my stuff as well. So, but then it goes back to, this is us.
Yep.
Not just me and you type thing.
And so how was that with, we talked about it at first where you said you lost your job, you wanted to propose, mm-hmm. Just trying to figure out something to do to get there. That didn't last long.
Yeah. And
then you're unemployed again.
Yeah.
So how long were you unemployed after that?
About 8 months.
What's
man,
that?
I'm telling you, it's been this thing called life has been a journey, man.
It always is.
This has been a journey.
It always is, and it's one that you can't predict. And I think having faith and having what you said, a community, whether it's a community of other men or your person, to support you is like extremely important.
Yeah.
Especially when you can communicate how you're feeling, and have an outlet to do that, whether it's your person, your community group, or both.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to be in your head. I'm not working.
Mm-hmm.
I proposed. Mm-hmm. We're getting married.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting at home for the most part.
Yeah.
She goes to work. She comes back. Like, what do you do?
I'm still there.
Like, I mean, what do you like? What's going on in your head? I'm sure, like every couple of days, you're like, okay, so, day goes by, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like Thursday. Like, what did I do this week? Like, what's going on in your head, day to day? Just like not even a relationship. Like, it's been month 4. You don't have a job, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on in your head?
What am I doing? Like, this can't be life. Like, I'm better than this. But it was also, and this is why I stress how it's important to have that community, is in my life group, it was 5 of us who were all unemployed at the same time. That wasn't by mistake. So it's like, there's a purpose behind it. And I feel like for me, my purpose was, I feel like I was always chasing a check. Like, instead of actually following my purpose. Mm-hmm. And I feel like God had to really remove me from situations and give me that time to really sit and really figure out, I'm doing this for a reason. I feel like you're avoiding what I'm trying to get you to go towards. So, I think it was just, I try to keep myself busy, try to make sure I was taking care of things at home and, doing the things I need to do for us. But, I mean, it was tough. I mean, probably one of the toughest things I've ever dealt with.
And at that time, part of that time, you guys weren't living together, right?
Right.
And so, was it a situation where you saw her every day, and so you had to deal with that kind of reality, or versus when you guys were living with each other, or did that feel different?
I mean, at that point, we really truly only saw each other on the weekends.
Okay, yeah. So it was normal. So what was it like when you started living with each other, and like you see her leave, you see her come back, and you probably moved to the other side of the couch?
Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm up here sending her off. Like, man, it's frustrating. I mean, like I said, it's probably one of the biggest tests of faith I've ever experienced. And, trying to not get frustrated, trying not to get weary, trying not to get down on myself. And, I mean, it was, like I said, it was tough, man.
And so being in this situation where I can just imagine by yourself, let's say you're not tied to anyone, it's stressful, it's hard, you're probably doubting yourself, you're probably feeling despair in some ways. Yeah. And to some people, maybe even depression. Like, hey, I did all this stuff. Like you said, I'm better than this. Yeah. And now you have the responsibility of someone else's. Yeah. Because you're a team. Yeah. So it's like, it's like basketball. If you're a shooter, your shot's not falling, you just say, I don't play. Like, you still have other things to do to contribute. Like, how is that, knowing that, you still need to be there for her emotionally, responsive the same way? Like, how do you balance what you're going through, that any human being going through is going to take a toll on, and then having to still do your part as a partner of a team in the relationship?
It was tough. It was truly tough, man. It was, it took some, like I said, it just really went back to, just having those guys around that were pretty much experiencing the same thing that I was experiencing. The only difference was I was engaged and then married. But, encouraging each other. And then she was my number one supporter. She always, I've never been encouraged more from anybody than her. So it was those times where I would get in my head. I mean, the worst place to be is in your own thoughts, man. Because
trust me, I understand.
It's the worst place. So
they take you down some dark paths and valleys,
some very, very dark places. But then when you have somebody that truly has your best interests at heart and truly sees you for you and not for, I think it just goes like, I don't identify with my career. Like, that's not my identity.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. It's just what I do. And it took me a long time to really realize that. So once I'm more focused, and kind of where I'm at now is like fulfilling my purpose. And like, she always encouraged me to like, this is a down season, but it's just a season, and utilize this time to really follow your purpose and fulfill your purpose. So,
and I'm trying to think about it along the lines of, if someone's in that situation, you know, my guy is facing some type of situation where he's down on himself, down on luck, what have you. Yeah. And they're like, how can I be supportive of him? Like, what were things that she did to, was it just like, hey, are you okay? How are you doing? Hey, you can do it. Motivational, sending you scripture. Like, what were things that she did more tactically that helped you continue to stay afloat, right?
Not only, you know, I mean, of course, you know, we prayed together for sure. She prayed for me for sure. But she, you know, she knew the things that I'm passionate about. So she would like, hey, you know, I bought you this domain. I really want you to utilize this time to build your business. You know, she might connect me with people. Like, hey, talk to this person. You know, you was there when she, you know, we worked on my resume and all that stuff. Like, you know, it's just the little things like, okay, if, you know, she helped me apply for jobs, you know, it's, so just really being there in my corner, and not feeling like I'm in this by myself.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was less around, oh, Dorian's down, let me get his favorite food to pick him back up, but more.
I mean, that might happen every once in a while. Yeah. That might happen every once in a while, but it
was more along the lines of, she took this, you know, negative thing that was going on as if it was happening to her.
Yeah.
And was doing things, not like, oh, that's his problem, I hope he gets through it, and let me make sure he's as happy as it can be. But like, this is my problem too, and let me do the steps that I would take as if it was my problem, but just provide those for you. Yeah. Like you talked about the resume, looking for jobs, helping you apply, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like anything we were both of. I mean, even before we've been married, you know, that's one of the things. You know, if there's some things that she deals with at work, I've always said it's our issue, not just yours. You know, so we both kind of take on like, you're not in this by yourself.
Did you feel like it was even more important to like show up when she was going through something? You know, because I imagine you're going through a lot. This person is rocking with you, shooting with you in the gym. And every now and then they're going through something. Yeah. Did you feel like it's important for you to show up even harder than you might have before?
No, because that comes natural for me.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel, you know, and she'll tell you this, I don't always look out for myself like I look out for others. So it's naturally in me to like drop everything for somebody I care about. But that's one of the things she says I struggle with, is I don't put that same emphasis on myself. So naturally it was, you know, I'm gonna drop everything for her.
Do you think that's something that guys in general, like with that whole, like, you know, women they talk about how women are feelers and guys are fixers. Do you feel like that's more something that's you oriented, or just part of it that comes with the territory of being a guy, that we just want to fix things and make things right for people, especially the people that we care about?
Yeah, I would say for the most part, you know, I think it's more of like a society thing, how we've been brought up, that as guys, you know, we're supposed to be the providers, the fixers. You know, if there's an issue, we take care of it. And, you know, I think it's just a product of what we've been taught for so long. So,
and some of what you mentioned before was, you know, you not having your father figure around. You know, in what ways has that made you more attuned to like women's needs and the role that you need to play as a man in the relationship? And then in what ways has it kind of set you back? Like, I didn't get to learn this, so I'm trying to figure this out because I didn't see it.
I think far as how it's kind of helped me back is more or less confidence in myself. You know, I never had, you know, growing up, I never had anybody like, you know how like, you know, when you're young, you know, you go out to the basketball court with your pops and like you fall down, like, come on, man, get on up, like, do it again, type thing. I never really had that.
Pushing you.
Yeah, just pushing you. I never had that. Like, you know, my mom didn't want me to go to the basketball court because she feared that there was some older dudes there and something was gonna happen. Like, and as much as my uncle tried to intervene, you know, he really couldn't. So I feel like that's kind of hindered me a little bit as I've grown. And that's kind of that's you know, that's probably one of the areas I struggle with, is just when things don't necessarily go my way, not to like get down on myself, but actually keep going and not let that to deter me. But far as how not having a father in my life has motivated me,
or just being maybe closer to your mom, either one. So not having a father motivated you, or the fact that like you were so attuned and close, I know you have a really close relationship with your mom, has allowed you to be more attuned to certain things because you were able to establish such a close bond.
Yeah, I mean it's motivated me to. I've seen the mistakes that he's made. I've seen the mistakes that my stepfather's made. You know, I've seen those mistakes, and the thing I think is I've seen them at an age where I was able to truly recognize them. And like I said, I still see my dad's today. So I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm more of like a spiritual leader to him. Wow. Because, you know, he's still making those same mistakes. So it's really motivated me. I've seen the mistakes he's made, and especially when it comes to relationships. I mean, he's on his third marriage. He had 4 boys by 4 different women. So it's kind of really motivated me to, and honestly, it's kind of motivated all my brothers to find that person that was meant for us and build that solid foundation and really stick with that person. And you know, it just motivated me to be a better person and be a better husband, and especially when we have children.
And so we talked a lot about kind of how upbringing.
I don't know if I answered that question.
Oh, you answered it. It's your answer. It's not. There's no right or wrong with this, and it's just your perspective, how have you been impacted by it, and what you've either learned from it or the ways that you're growing from it.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time on how, you know, your upbringing has impacted how you see the relationship and the roles, and some of the challenges that you face have impacted the experience in the relationship. Mm-hmm. In general, you know, challenges aside that life brings. I mean, you guys are 2 people trying to become one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are things that annoy the hell out of you.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
You're bothered by, that I wish they would stop.
Yeah.
You know, what are some of those things that like she does that annoy the hell out of you, and that you do that annoy the hell out of her?
For me, you know, and I'm not trying to put her on blast, so
if she
should be all right.
She's honest with herself. Yeah. She knows it's true.
I would say, you know, I'm, especially when it comes to like home. Yeah. At the house, I'm more organized, and you know, I try to like pick up and continue to like clean, like, and she like, you know, we had this conversation a while ago, probably last week. She's more willing to pay somebody to clean up. Like, let's just get. I
have a question about that later.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Like,
keep going.
she was like, you know, we got somebody. Let's, like, because she had somebody that's came over and cleaned a couple times, and I'm like, okay, you could do that. That's on your dime at that point. Now it's us. Like, we're not about to pay that person $150 for what I can do or what we can do together. Aside,
when you weren't working and she said, "Well, it's my money," like, did she ever like, "It's my money"?
No,
okay.
no.
Because that happens. And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
We a team. Are we making decisions with our money? Okay, so keep going. So, you know, you're a little bit more organized.
Yeah.
She's She's not as organized, a little messier, and
not. Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's definitely not like
not filthy.
No,
Yeah.
no, nothing like that.
I mean,
but
she's more willing to outsource that type of stuff.
for sure.
Where you're like, one of us can do it.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of just goes the way we grew up. Her mom's kind of like that. She got the cleaning lady from her mom.
Oh, so she saw that growing up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I grew up Saturday morning. We was up cleaning
early. Same here.
Early. So it's just like, no, I'm not paying for that. Like, for what?
We are fully capable.
Trust me. I'm not in no wheelchair. Everything works.
Yeah.
We can do this together.
And so something like that is more innate to you, right? And doesn't feel as much like work, right?
Yeah.
And something that obviously she's like, I don't like. It's not even a capability that she don't want to do it,
yeah.
Right? And rather, to the extent that she would rather pay someone to do it,
yeah.
How do you bridge the gap?
I should be like, no, we're not gonna do that.
And she says, okay.
She might fight me a little bit, but I think
then you end up
so. Or then what I'll do is those instances where she'll fall asleep early, or like I'll wake up on a Saturday morning and just start cleaning while she's still asleep. And yeah, I just do it.
And so you end up just doing it.
Yeah, and then what it'll lead to is she'll be like, oh man, you didn't wash all the clothes and you didn't clean the bathrooms. Okay, let me at least get the room type thing.
She'll say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because where my thought process was going to, does that ever, are you fearful that might create a sense of resentment that's like, okay, this is important to me to do it this way. I know you don't want to do it. And now it's leading me to always do this. And, and are you fearful like, okay, it's 5 years from now, you still waking up super early while she sleep, cleaning up?
I mean, sometimes, I mean, it does get frustrating from time to time. But, I would say that it just goes back to communication. Like, okay. And one thing I would say for us, it's important to know your spouse.
Yeah.
And it's important to know their peak times.
Yeah.
So I know asking her to do anything after 8 o'clock, it's a wrap. Like, but if we get up at 6 o'clock, like, okay, let's get this done, or we get up at 7, let's get this done. She's more willing to do that as opposed to doing it later. So it's like, you got to know your spouse.
But are you a person that rather do it later than wake up early?
I'm either or.
Okay.
Yeah, I could pop up or I can get it done late.
Gotcha. So what are some other things that you guys are navigating or trying to find? I think that's the best way to put it. Where are you guys trying to find compromise?
We spend different. We spend different.
Explain.
I enjoy fashion. You're a
fashionable guy.
Yeah. So I'll spend more on clothes. She'll spend more on like fast food. But I'm also the primary cook of the household too. So, what I'll do is like, okay, I'll cook this and make sure you have stuff to take for lunch. But she's not really big on leftovers. So, which I do not understand, but
No, everybody's different. I could, bro. The microwave is my best friend.
Man, I don't get it.
And I just got a toaster oven, so it's even easier.
Man, I grew up on leftovers. Like, it was nothing to eat leftovers for like 5-6 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I think that's one of our differences. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, it's just learning, really figuring out how to. I gotta cut back a little bit. She gotta cut back a little bit, and then trying to find that happy median.
So how do you guys navigate? Well, I'm curious about the food thing because that's a thing that I'm like, I don't understand. But so with the food thing, let's say that I'm gonna cook,
yeah,
and I'm making enough so that you got food, and then
I'm telling you, it's only us. I try to make enough,
and then she goes to work, like your lunch is still here, and then she spends $15 on. Like, what does that conversation look like? And I know it's a process, but how do you get her, because I'm assuming from your perspective, how do you get her closer to where you're at?
Yeah.
Like, and I know before you say ask why, but like she's like, I don't like it.
It's probably one of the most frustrating things. But I also know. So when it comes to leftovers, I know what she will actually eat the next day now. If it's a pasta, if it's a salmon, anything like that, she'll do. But so it's just like, okay, I got to have in my head, all right, I'm going to cook this, and you're probably going to be the only one that's going to eat this the next day. So
I think it's good that you know that. And I think people hear that, well, I know my person. If I do this and this and this, it'll work. If I don't do this, it won't work. How'd you get there? Because people forget there's a journey.
It's a process.
Right? And if they see the picture, like, oh, here's a picture of Bae on Instagram eating my leftovers. She always, no, she don't like leftovers. But I figured this out through...
It's trial and error.
Trial and error.
Man, I mean, it was one time, man, like, it was one time she actually cooked, right? She made like a tortilla soup. So I was taking it to work.
You're probably killing it every day.
Man, every day. Every day. And so she made it, and then I put them all together. So I gave, like, she got 3 bowls. I got 3 bowls. I killed my 3 bowls. Man, so it was like a month later. I'm cleaning out the refrigerator. She got 2 bowls in the back. In the refrigerator. I'm like, for real? I'm like, I could have ate that. Like, what are you doing? So it's just, she was just like, I mean,
you think she was hiding it from you?
Man, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm like, you know, I could have ate that, because like she'll look at me, she's like, that's like 5 days old, and
it's still good.
It's still good. So
in those situations, I think, what would you say, regardless of what it is, whether it's cleanliness, food, spending, what have you, what advice would you give someone trying to navigate those differences that they have with their person, and also like trying to figure out, like, is this something that's too big, you know, to, like, I don't want to say deal breaker, but like, is it too big to not, like...
I mean, it's... So one thing for sure is you gotta know your spouse's strengths and their weaknesses. And then, you know, not to necessarily say it's a deal breaker, but you gotta be able to count your costs. So it's like, what are you willing to deal with? Are you, you know, if you've been around this person, you know how they are. And that might not be how you are. Are you willing to deal with that? Because in most cases, that person has showed you who they are. So it's up to you to believe it or not. So if they show you who they are, can you deal with it? And then you look at it like, okay, there's certain areas where I feel like I'm stronger at. Those when you kind of take the lead, and the other person, they might be stronger in certain areas. So you kind of follow them, and just let's tag team this thing, because you know, you're not in this by yourself.
Man, that's so real, and that's a great note to end it on. I really appreciate you for being here today, and I also want to thank everyone out there that's listening. Please subscribe to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast on all major platforms. If you have any questions, thoughts, feedback, you want to learn more, please send me a note at ThinkLoveWife on Instagram. We'll be sure to make sure we're talking about those points. On the next episode, we're going to look at the importance of really knowing who your partner is, the growth process that comes with a serious relationship, and dealing with your partner's ex or their friends from the opposite sex. Thanks again for joining us, and I hope the conversation keeps going.